On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, Duane Tudhal's book has a release date, early reactions to the Prince Grammys tribute, the Purple Spotlight, Like the Boots, and more. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 24 of Amari Purple Talk, a Prince podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist, and I want to start by thanking everyone that has tuned in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show where comments are displayed. Please continue to download and listen from your favorite podcast platform. And YouTube listeners, please continue to like and subscribe. Feel free to also visit my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You may also click the links in the show notes to follow me on social media and submit topics or questions for use in future episodes and purchase Amari Purple Talk merchandise. And with that out of the way, let's dive right in. All right. And of course, I record this on Sunday nights. So as this goes to broadcast, last night was the Super Bowl. The Chiefs won. So congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. Salute to all the Kansas City Chief fans. It was a great, exciting game. I enjoyed it a lot. And so we kind of started taping late, but like I said, this should still broadcast on time. And with that out of the way, we're going to dive into our first topic. And our first topic today is Duane Tudhal's Prince book has a release date. All right, so Duane Tudhal, who is the author of the book Prince and the Purple Rain Era Studio Sessions, it's a book that I highly recommend. If you don't already have it, this is probably a must-have. Especially a lot of newbies that come in, and especially if Purple Rain was sort of your gateway and you became a fan through that, and maybe some of the music prior to that or a little bit after, or maybe even some of the protege acts as well. It is a book that is similar in scope to the Beatles recording sessions at Abbey Road by Mark Lewison. So it basically kind of gives a breakdown of what was going on in the studio, mainly the sessions at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, but also some insight into his recordings that were done at his home in Minneapolis as well. And kind of gives a background on how a lot of the songs that have been released, a lot of unreleased tracks as well, basically how they took shape during the recording or the recordings that ended up becoming Purple Rain, and like I said, other recordings as well, such as Apollonia 6, The Time, a lot of vault tracks, some of which that have seen the light of day. Some of those tracks did end up on the Purple Rain Deluxe Edition, but like I said, a great book for fans as well as new people jumping on board to pick up. So with that, this is going to the Purple Rain Era Sessions was sort of volume 1 to a series of books that Duane Tudhal is working on. You can follow him on Facebook. His page is called Prince, the Complete Studio Sessions Book Series. So it was on this Facebook page that he made a post regarding that his publisher, because he is working on a second volume, and this information is regarding the second volume and sort of a kind of a teaser as to when this will be released. So basically he's still working on it, so it's still, kind of not quite completed as of yet, but the publisher sort of little excited over, I guess, what they've seen so far, and they're really excited about it, and basically kind of giving this thing almost a release date. So what we have, according to his page, is that the book will be out in March of 2021. And this book will be tentatively titled Prince and the Parade and Sign of the Times Era Studio Sessions 1985 to 1986. All right, so again, on his Facebook page, he did provide some of the details as to what this volume will entail. And basically he says that book 2, which covers 1985 through 86, will cover Parade, Sign of the Times, Crystal Ball, which, for those that don't know, that's pretty much the same album. He originally recorded a 3 LP set, but Warner Brothers said no to that, and so he kind of eliminated the 3rd disc, and we have what we now know as the Sign of the Times album. All right, but we have Sign of the Times, Crystal Ball, Dream Factory, Madhouse 8, The Family, The Flesh, that's unreleased project there, the Jill Jones album, parts of the Black Album, Camille, covered that on some previous episodes, Sheila E.'s 2nd and 3rd album, and the last part of the Purple Rain Tour, the Parade Tour, Under the Cherry Moon Movie, as well as the breakup of the Revolution and the Family, and more. And he says that there is so much incredible music in this one. He did all of this in 2 years. All right, so like I said, if you haven't read the Purple Rain Era Sessions volume, that was amazing in itself. That material consisted of Purple Rain, material that ended up on the Times Ice Cream Castles, the Apollonia 6 album, Manic Monday was part of that session, or those sessions as well. What else? What am I thinking about? Some of the beginnings of tracks that ended up on, say, Maserati's album. There's, Sheila E.'s first album. And I could just go, the list goes on and on and on. And that was amazing in itself. But, now you get into 85, 86, and I would say even 87 as well. Just the magnitude of material that he was recording. And I mean, pristine quality material. I'm sure that as deluxe editions of, say, maybe Parade or even Sign of the Times, just like with the 1999 Super Deluxe, there is very little filler. Very few of those tracks you could say were literally throwaway tracks. It was just a phenomenal, prolific period for Prince at this time. So this is definitely a book that I'm looking forward to getting. And like I said, I enjoy the first volume, the Purple Rain Era Sessions. Sometimes with some of the topics, I still refer to that as a reference point. But this definitely is something I'm looking forward to getting when it's released. So definitely going to have to start eating my vegetables and working out more, because I got to be around in March 2021. This, for me, is sort of the equivalent to almost like, say, back when Star Wars, if this was 1977 and the Purple Rain Era Sessions was sort of that equivalent, this here is going to be my Empire Strikes Back, this volume. So I am very anxious to see. This is the equivalent of anticipation for a Marvel film, too, actually. So I cannot wait till this is released. Like I said, lots of material I'm looking forward to finding out new information about, or maybe getting more details about information I already know. But like I said, again, if you're a fan and you kind of want to be a fly on the wall of the recording process of Prince, like I said, definitely pick up the Purple Rain Era Sessions book first. You've got about a year and a month to get that and read that before you pick up this one when this one's released. So I am definitely looking forward to getting this book. So again, is this something that you're excited about? Like I said, if you're new to the world of Prince, if you're new to the Prince musical singularity, definitely, and especially if, say, like I said, with the first volume, if, say, 1999 and Purple Rain was your gateway as a fan, definitely pick up that volume. And maybe this will give you some insight to pick up some of these albums if you don't have them already. Seek out Parade, seek out Sign of the Times. Sheila E.'s second and third album, definitely check those out as well. The Family, definitely a must-have for your collection. Definitely seek that out. So what do you guys think? Are you excited about this book as well? Are you planning on picking it up upon its release? Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And we're going to end our second topic and dive right into the next topic. And the next topic is the Prince Grammys tribute. And these are early reactions, not only to the sort of, I guess, almost sneak preview that was broadcast on the Grammys, as far as Usher's performance as part of the main program of the Grammys, but also reactions online from people that have attended the taping of the tribute, which took place that following Tuesday. All right, so there is an actual release, or not a release date, but an actual broadcast date for this Prince tribute or Grammys tribute. It is April 21st. And of course, check your local listings, folks, on the actual time that it will broadcast. I'm sure it's probably 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock Central or something like that. But like I said, as the time draws near, check your local listings so you don't miss it, or set your DVRs for it. So I'm gonna start with my reaction to the performance from the actual Grammys. Now, honestly, I did not watch the Grammys because I'm getting to that age of, say, our parents or grandparents, and it's like I don't recognize anyone anymore. I'll hear a song or two that sounds pretty good, even if it's up to date. It doesn't have to be retro, doesn't have to be throwback, but if it's a pretty good beat or pretty good sound, that's fine. But I just don't really just chase everything like I used to. I'm not that ingrained into the music business like I used to be, to where I felt like I had to pay attention to every single moving part and try to keep up with what's going on. So just on that basis, I did not watch it, but I started to see sort of the reactions on social media, and especially when it came to the Prince tribute. Now, of course, everyone in the Prince community, everyone has their own opinion, and that's fine. Music and movies and just about everything is subjective. So things that you might like, I may not like, or things that I might like, you might not like. And that's fine. That's fine. That doesn't take away from the overall enjoyment of anyone's body of work, whether it's music or film. So, but apparently, I guess, and I did try to catch some of it. I don't know, maybe I'll just have to go on demand or something and actually watch it. But I did try to catch some YouTube snippets of the Prince tribute portion of the Grammys. And the particular focus from social media was Usher's performance, and especially regarding the song Kiss. Now, I've seen some of that footage, and I've also seen somebody posted some rehearsal footage as well from that. And I'm going to pretty much agree that, yeah, they kind of, it's, I didn't particularly enjoy it or care for it. Nothing against Usher. I mean, he's put out a few good albums, especially, kind of like late 90s, early to, like 2002 up to about 2006, 7, 8. Some really pretty strong albums from that period. And maybe not quite heir apparent to Michael Jackson, but probably one of those individuals that, had the potential to sort of kind of carry that torch as far as someone singing and dancing and having some really great dance tracks. So kind of before I continue with the rest of, sort of the reactions to the tribute or my personal thoughts about any tributes or anything, I will start off by saying, kind of like Prince, I'm very particular on who should cover anything. And, there are just certain people that are, and especially if they write their own songs as well, because sometimes songs come from places so deep within that only you and you alone can convey the energy or the emotion behind that song. I mean, even if it's a dance track where the lyrics don't really go anywhere, sometimes you're just in that zone. You're in that moment that only you and you alone can give the absolute definitive performance of a particular piece. So with that being said, there's people like Prince, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, there's just certain, or, Shaka Khan songs, Aretha songs, whoever your favorite artist is, sometimes that performance is just the absolute definitive performance. Now, way back when, basically the music industry was mainly in the hands of the song writers. They would be like in these office buildings, with a piano and, probably a guy writing the tune and somebody writing the lyrics. And the goal was to get as many people to record or perform that song as much as possible. That's how they made their money, through getting as many people to perform as possible. But as we started to get into the age of maybe the singer-songwriter or the artist being able to do everything themselves, then those compositions and those performances tend to be a little bit more personal, or they become more personal. So covering, unless you're just someone that just doesn't write their own songs, then yeah, covering just doesn't have the appeal that it used to have. And, it's at a point nowadays where I wish people would almost stop doing it, very few people, it's just kind of like anything, cooking anything, or let's take rice, for example. A lot of people can cook rice. Very few do it well. And that's just my position on covers. And tributes in general, I'm not an overall fan of tributes. I know everyone's heart is in the right place. And again, it goes back to the rice analogy. A lot of people can do it. Few people do it well. And, again, I know with the Grammys, it's a televised event. So there's ratings involved. And I know a lot of, at least with this particular tribute, it's probably more noticeable because, this is an artist that, we all enjoy. So I think, because us as a community, we take it kind of more personal, and on an individual level, you kind of want to tend to, like I said, there's a piece that you just kind of hold on to for yourself. And if it doesn't kind of align, or if something comes along that's not quite in line with how you're interpreting, your experience with that artist, then there's a lot of, I guess, difference of opinion, so to speak. So, but for just in general, like I said, I'm just not a big fan. And I think probably because, again, the songs are so deeply personal to a particular artist that when you have someone else trying to interpret that artist's intentions, like I said, some kind of pull it off more than others. But again, in line with the Grammys tribute, like I said, the Beatles one, for me, the appeal was the fact that if nothing else, and just because of the circumstances, you did have at least Paul and Ringo there to perform. So, a lot of the covers, Stevie Wonder's version of We Can Work It Out. Now, he covered that in the late 60s. So, and that was a pretty big hit for him. So, yeah, it kind of made sense to have Stevie Wonder there and do that song. I can't remember any of the other performances there, but a lot of them were kind of, again, it's always hit and miss. Some things I enjoyed, some things I didn't. And from what I could tell, the actual one on Stevie Wonder, again, he's around to participate. So part of that appeal, it's like, okay, you have people interpreting, but you also have him there to perform as well and interact with, the other artists as well. When it comes to an artist that has moved, that has passed away, like I said, with the Beatles, you had John and George that passed away, and all you were left with was Paul and Ringo. But again, at least you had two members of the Beatles there to represent. With the case of Prince, even though he had his various bands, and a lot of us, we all know the names of the different band members from each incarnation of whether it was the Revolution or the NPG, to the rest of the world, and even to us too, Prince was sort of the central focus. He produced and arranged and wrote and performed on the records. And as far as the bands, he was the front man. So, but with that absence, and like I said, in regard to this tribute, there's a lot of people up in arms about a lot of things. So let's talk about what we're going to expect with this. Now, there was a lot of positive feedback from people that were there, not people that necessarily performed or maybe even worked on it, but people that were either invited there or had an opportunity to attend. So definitely a lot of positive output, but there was a lot of criticism in regards to the song choice. Now, they did release the set list of songs and the performers. And I got to say, it's pretty interesting. To me, this won't be your run-of-the-mill tribute because you do have Sheila E., who's the musical director, and you have participation from Morris Day and the Time. You have participation from the Revolution. You do have someone like Common, who has worked with Prince. What is that? Electric Circus was the album. I can't think of the song, but Prince played guitar. But most of that album, I think, was produced by Questlove, who's, we all know, probably one of the hugest Prince fans out there. So that's famous anyway. But basically what I like about this list, like I said, you have the Revolution. That's part of it. You have Princess, which is basically a tribute band that basically was endorsed by Prince. And half of that duo is Maya Rudolph. Many of you know her from Saturday Night Live fame, but she is also Minnie Riperton's daughter as well. So the thing that I like about this is that you do have people that have at least worked with him being performers in this tribute. And probably the one act that was influential on Prince is Earth, Wind, and Fire. So, yeah, I don't see too many acts that have been, kind of stuck in there just because for the ratings. That was sort of my biggest apprehension, that they were going to have people that really have no business singing or doing anything with a Prince song, or don't have the vocal prowess or even the instrumental prowess to try to reinterpret a Prince song. But I mean, you've got Gary Clark Jr. Again, real music by a real musician. If you're not familiar with his work, by all means, go check it out. Phenomenal guitar player. So as far as, next generation of human beings inspired to play real instruments, he's carrying the torch. Also, let's see, the artist, Her. I don't know too much about her, but from what I've seen and from what I've heard, she can also play. So I think she's probably a unique artist in that regard too. So I'll probably have to go check out some of her music and make more of a determination. But from what little I did see, then the both of them are going to perform "Let's Go Crazy" at this event. You have John Legend that will be doing "Nothing Compares to You." Let's see, you've got, is this Common with the Foo Fighters, I guess, doing both Pop Life and Darling Nikki. Miguel, R&B artist who music in some respects, I guess in particular, a lot of his ballads owe a lot to, the foundations that Prince has laid down for that. Gary Clark Jr. is also doing The Cross. Beck is doing Raspberry Beret. Again, with Beck, another, he's a guy that, kind of produces, writes, arranges, performs his own album. Every album is different. So, and someone that also acknowledges Prince as an inspiration. And of course, Morris Day and the Time, representing with the Bird and Cool. Earth, Wind, and Fire doing Adore. The Revolution doing Mountains. So, I mean, I think I would probably enjoy this tribute, probably more than other tributes to other artists. I know, like I said, a lot of the controversy, and no pun intended, folks, a lot of the sort of debate is in regards to the selection of material. A lot of people are upset that this concentrates only on 80s classic material. And, there's not enough representation or no representation of any of the 90s or the 2000 songs. Well, I mean, basically in the minds of the mainstream, again, this is for ratings. This is network television. This is not something for the deep dives, but like I said, I'm glad that there are people from his camp that are representing. Like I said, they could not have asked Morris Day and the Time. They could have not had the Revolution on. They could have gotten, we all know how the Madonna tribute kind of worked, when I was at the Billboard Awards, I think. her tribute to Prince. We all know how badly that turned out. So we won't find any of that here. Like I said, these are quality musicians. These are, for the most part, most of them are great singers in their own right. So I'm leaning more towards my expectations being very high for this one. So April 21st, I can't wait to tune in and check that out. I know a lot of people are kind of put off too that the choice of the date. Well, I don't know. We kind of live in this sort of age, whether that came out of the 20th century or even, just within the last 10, 20 years or whatever. But we kind of live in that age where people pay attention to, when a person's born. They pay attention to when they pass as well. I know, you get a lot of buzz on January 8th, say like when Elvis was born, and then you get a lot of stuff going on August 16th, which was the day that he passed. So, I remember, say like high school or, even later, it's like if it's Elvis's birthday, then it's a week of Elvis movies, or, the records will go on sale or something. John Lennon as well. There's a lot of, Yoko tends to release a lot of things closer to his birthday. And then there's things that are reminders, whether it's an album release or some kind of a project that's a reminder of when he passed as well. So I don't know if that's just human nature. We just tend to do that. It doesn't bother me in either respect. It's the date they chose, so I don't know. I'm going to go with it, and like I said, hopefully going to have a good time with it. So April 21st, Grammy tribute to Prince. And again, as far as the set list, I mean, it's a tribute, and like I said, you're only going to feel so much time. I don't know who picked the songs necessarily, but this does represent, his classic period. And for a lot of mainstream people, this will be, this might be the gateway. There might be people that, that are like, I'm in my 50s, people in their 50s, or, someone sitting in the middle of Iowa somewhere that have never, that may have heard of Prince, but they only know Purple Rain, or they don't know anything at all. They just couldn't get past whatever to take time and listen to the music. And also, too, maybe some of these people, maybe fans of the Foo Fighters, will be like, oh, okay, well, let's get into this Prince guy, see what he's all about. People that are fans of Beck, that might not be aware, of, Prince's influence or anything. This might be the jumping on point. And like I said, you kind of start somewhere. If I was dealing with a newbie, I might start with something from the classic era and then kind of bring them in. That's what I pretty much do with this show is, for people that aren't familiar, and the other podcast as well. We serve that purpose to let you know, like, yeah, well, this stuff is great, but hey, check this out over here. So I don't know. I'm happy with the set list. The choice of performers, I'm okay with. I don't see any, I don't see anybody that I don't feel shouldn't be on this list. There's a couple of names on here that I don't even know at all, so I'm looking forward to see, who they are and what they do and how they interpret these songs. So I'm looking forward to it. But the question is, are you excited about it? Are you happy with the set list? Are you one of those that feel that there should be more emphasis on later material? Or, are you not into tributes at all? Leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And we're going to end topic number 2 and move on to our third topic, which is, should The Truth be released as a standalone album? Okay, so I was kind of thinking, since we had that news, which is a rumor, it still hasn't been substantiated yet, about the Rainbow Children being released. But I did discuss in a previous episode, will this be a standalone release, or will it be released kind of the way Sony has been reissuing a lot of material back in this past year, where you had 3 albums kind of released simultaneously. So getting to the album The Truth, that was originally released as part of the Crystal Ball set that was released in 1998. Basically, Crystal Ball was 3 CDs worth of tracks from the vault. Some of those were slightly altered mixes or remixes because of those other, or I guess original mixes still belonged to Warner Brothers at that time, before Prince acquired ownership of his master recordings from Warner Brothers. But it was a pretty good set. I enjoyed a lot of it. But I'm looking forward to it being re-released, and I'm hoping that gets re-released with a very comprehensive set of liner notes, meaning that in addition to the original liner notes of that, include the lyrics that were only available on a website. I think you can still go to the Crystal Ball website and still see all the lyrics for every song on that Crystal Ball CD. But part of the appeal of getting that set, if you ordered it from 1-800-NEW-FUNK back in 1998, you got, in addition to the 3 Crystal Ball CDs, there was this album, The Truth, which is a mostly acoustic album. Like most of the album he played acoustic guitar on. But there's other tracks that, have other instruments, drums, horns, bass, guitar in them as well. But mostly he's playing the acoustic guitar on that. And there was a 5th disc, which is an orchestral CD called Kama Sutra. And basically it was a set of orchestral pieces that were featured during his wedding ceremony to Maite back in 1996. So if you called 1-800-NEW-FUNK, and if you ordered the CD that way, then you got the set with the 5 discs. If you purchased Crystal Ball via any retail outlet, which is what I did back in 1998, then you only got the 3 CDs and The Truth. Now, if you go back to the Emancipation album, in the liner notes, at the very back, there's where he's, of course, thanks everyone, thanks God, and all the things you put in the liner notes. But he was like, coming soon, Crystal Ball, and The Truth was mentioned as well. But originally, this was going to be a standalone CD at one point. I don't know why the decision was made to include it, but given how, I don't know how to put it, prophetic he was. Because, I mean, this is, we kind of had the internet in those days, but it's nowhere near like the internet that we have today. And as far as Prince being a visionary, it was sort of like those ways of getting music to people that, that was sort of the centerpiece or one of the centerpieces of wanting to be away from the control of Warner Brothers. And that was the thing of, well, hey, why can't I just make an album and just give the album away? So having The Truth as a bonus CD was great. But again, the liner notes were sort of victim to the Crystal Ball liner notes, meaning that it just kind of gave you a breakdown of if there were guest musicians who played what on what and that kind of things. And you didn't get the lyrics with it as well. So, but from what I've heard, that there was actual cover art that was created for this. So I guess at some point originally it was going to be a standalone album that would have been released, I don't know, maybe before or after Crystal Ball or whatever, but the decision was made to just include it. So now that we're kind of in this era of Sony reissuing everything that Prince had released from 1995 onward until they get control of the Warner Brothers material in 2021. Should The Truth be released as a single CD? Should it be a part of maybe not necessarily Crystal Ball, or release Crystal Ball as just a 3 CD set? Maybe release The Truth. I don't see how economically viable the Kama Sutra album would be, other than, maybe as like a special record store day release. But if there was to be maybe a reissue of Crystal Ball, would you include the Truth album as part of it? I mean, given the way the songs, it's an album that's already standalone. A lot of great tracks on it, particularly the first two. The title track, The Truth, Don't Play Me, great acoustic tracks. Just him and just the acoustic guitar on those. But even some of the other material, there's a beautiful song, Come Back, which is allegedly about the passing of his son. It's a very beautiful piece of music. There's also Fascination. That's a pretty good track. There's an acoustic version of the song The Dawn, to which he teases in actual full instrumentation along with the vocals. Maybe a fully finished track does exist in the vault somewhere. But what is that? Circle of Amor. That's a pretty good track as well. But it's definitely something you should check out if you haven't heard it. If you have Tidal or Spotify or Apple Music, you can listen to it there. But as far as actually having a physical CD, I think it should just be released on its own. It's because, like I said, just because of the mood of the songs, the sequencing of the songs, doesn't quite really go with the Crystal Ball set, where that's sort of more of a grab bag of material, because it covered so much ground from like 86 to like 1994. But this album, had a semblance of a concept. All the songs belong together on that album. And I mean, it should get, actually, I mean, just kind of remembering back in the late 90s, I always felt this should have been released on its own. I know the critics probably would have just I mean, this would have been a 4 to 5 star album. Again, I feel this was an album that a mature Prince should release. It's again a statement to his artistry, not just your stereotypical Minneapolis sound, so to speak. This was a different direction, something that, we all knew he would be capable of, but, what mainstream expectations, like I said, a lot of the rock critics would have gotten into it. I mean, I think that if it was released today, that, I mean, again, this was something that the Rolling Stone magazines of the world would, it would give it again, maybe a 4 or 5 star rating. It's an album that, it's a listening experience, and like I said, it's another direction, and we're used to him taking different directions. But this is something I think that the world at large would better appreciate if it was a standalone release. And not just a record store day release. I mean, release it on its own, CD, on vinyl, great set of liner notes. I mean, I don't think it would cost a lot to package it well, Like I said, this would probably be one of the more anticipated releases. One of the more anticipated releases of his later material. I think there would be a serious demand for it. So I made this actually the Amari Purple Talk question of the week. So I have on my Facebook page, and I'll put a link to it, also on Twitter, if you go there as well. This was the question. Would you like The Truth still included with a reissue of Crystal Ball, or would you like it better as a standalone release? All right, so as it stands, and I'll have this poll up for through Tuesday. So basically, so far as it stands from Facebook, there's 83% that see it as a standalone CD versus the 76% that says keep it with Crystal Ball. And then over on Twitter, give me a moment to pull that up, folks. All right, come on. All right, on Twitter, so we've got 62% for release as a single CD, or 38% says keep it with Crystal Ball. All right, so it seems to be there's a lot of demand for it being a single CD. So, I mean, hopefully that's what we'll get. I'm not sure what the sequence of reissues are going to be this year. Like I said, so far there hasn't been any major announcements in regards to what Sony's going to release this year. I know it was back in February of last year. That's when we got the 3121 Musicology and Planet Earth. But I can't remember when the announcement for that was. Of course, now we're in February, so there hasn't been anything that's been announced as of yet. So, kind of curious as to what's going on. I guess the estate, maybe they're holding off because, a lot of people are still getting $19.99, and a lot of people are still on that $19.99 Super Deluxe buzz. I mean, I know I still am, but yeah, I'm ready for some more Sony stuff, though. Some more of those reissues, and again, filling those gaps, adding to the collection. And then, like I said, come 2021, I think Sony will probably hit the ground running. I think we'll get some really great surprises from them starting next year. But, since they have the licensing for the 1995 all the way through, whatever Prince's last recorded piece, As far as the reissues, right now, I think they're just focusing on those. But I'm excited to see what's going to come next. And definitely hoping to get The Truth as a single CD. Like I said, I think, and actually, I'm more looking forward to having it on vinyl, more so than CD, actually. So I hope that comes about. But what do you think? I'm going to have this poll up, like I said, through Tuesday. So if you follow me on Twitter, it's Richard Cole _now on Twitter. And you can always follow me on Facebook. If you go to my website, www.amaricommunications.com, go to the artist page, and that kind of gives like sort of a brief bio of myself as an artist. But I've also got the icons to all my social media links, so you can always click on those and access me there. So, but what do you think? So go ahead and vote. We'll update this on the next episode. And also, too, want to hear your thoughts and your comments. So leave me a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. And we're going to end. Actually, that's going to be the end of our topics this week. And we're going to jump into the Purple Spotlight. And the Purple Spotlight is a segment that highlights a Prince album, film, video, or an associated artist. And today's Purple Spotlight, it's more of an event. It is the 2007 Super Bowl halftime show. All right, so of course, like I said, I was taping this on a Sunday night. Had just finished watching the Super Bowl, and like I said, go Kansas City. Glad they won it. It was, exciting. Kind of a little bit of a nail biter at the end, but I was rooting for Kansas City the whole time, so I'm glad they pulled it off with the big comeback from behind win. So, and of course, the sort of the days leading up to it, especially within the Prince community, the buzz is, the Prince's Super Bowl halftime show was the absolute best. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to say something that might be a little unpopular to everyone listening today. Yes, that is one of my favorite all-time Super Bowl performances. But I'm going to give a little tiny shine to Bruno Mars' halftime performance. And I'm going to tell you why. Like I said, I know this is going to shake, rattle, and roll all the listeners out there, but hear me out. As far as a classic performer, as far as an absolute legend and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, and I can just go on. The list just goes on and on. Yes, Prince's performance ranks up there. Because prior to that, I should have done more of my homework. But I would say probably before Prince's performance on the Super Bowl, probably with the single exception of Michael Jackson's and maybe Paul McCartney's. I want to say the Stones did pretty good, but those were kind of what my favorites were as far as halftime performances prior to Prince's. And then Prince just kind of one-upped or two-upped or seven-upped all of those. But why I'm giving a little bit more edge to Bruno Mars is, okay, both brought energy, but I kind of measure a show, and especially whether it's a concert or whatever, to maintaining a certain level of energy with song selection and execution of those songs. I think where when I go back and watch Prince's performance, yeah, there's the cover of the Foo Fighters song, which was a nice cover. And when I go back and listen to it, but it's like, you get this amazing start with Let's Go Crazy and all of that. And then it kind of dips into this Foo Fighters territory. And like I said, it's a pretty decent cover of the song. But it's like, to me, he could have substituted any one of, and it didn't even have to be a classic song. It didn't even have to be a hit. The man had so much material. He could have pulled any one of his songs, a B-side, a vault song, or something that still would have matched the intensity of where he was and what he was doing. But, like I said, we're not going to debate the man's song choices. It still worked, and it's still the best. But the reason why I'm kind of giving Bruno that little edge is because I think where his dip was sort of with having the Red Hot Chili Peppers come out. That was a bit distracting, but hey, they did Give It Away. So high energy piece that, it kept the consistency. Because one of the things, because I even went back and watched Justin Timberlake's, because that was that year that the Super Bowl was in Minneapolis. And, there was a lot of that controversy because they thought he was going to bring out a hologram or something. And the bit, I kind of like the little alternate arrangement of I Would Die For You from that piece. But where Justin Timberlake lost me was just from the opening and maybe 2 or 3 songs in where it was just off. Because I just didn't think that the song choices fit the venue. It's like you're doing the Super Bowl, you have to come out because you only got those 15, 20 minutes or whatever it is, and you've got to come out and hit from beginning to end. And with Prince, opening with Let's Go Crazy was that bam, that sort of opening salvo that, this is the halftime show and we're here and we mean business. And like I said, I kind of give Bruno just that little tiny slight edge just because it was consistent from beginning to end on that. And 2, again, somebody that's, keeping that energy going, there's whatever it is that is supposed to be modern or pop or whatever the kids are listening to. Again, that's okay. And again, music is subjective. So what one person likes, the other person doesn't like, and that's cool on both ends. No one's absolutely right. No one's absolutely wrong with that. But, somebody that's, again, there's very few, again, you got your Gary Clark Jr.'s keeping it going. And I'm sure there's probably a dozen, Greta Van Fleet. They get criticized a lot from being too much like Led Zeppelin. But hey, they're youngsters and they're keeping that genre going. They're keeping it alive. And again, they're playing real instruments and their microphones are on. So there's that. So, so here's a new generation, coming in from the doors that were opened by whether it was Michael Jackson, whether it was Prince, whether it was James Brown, or whether it was whoever that had set the standard or, set the bar at such a level, was able to rise to that occasion. So just on that alone, and like I said, it's not a big, huge thing. And like I said, if, Prince is absolutely your number one, I get it. Yet it's still there. But like I said, if it's not a tie, like I said, just give him a little tiny edge. And it's a minor thing. It's just a real minor thing. It's just basically if it was me performing the Super Bowl, then it's like I'm not pulling the Foo Fighters song out of my hat. It's like I'm coming to take the stage, and I ain't letting it loose. So, you know, that's that. But getting back to the significance, because to me, I think really what really makes this top notch, and really, if you take everything away before he goes into Purple Rain, if you take all of that out and just leave it singularly at the Purple Rain performance, and then, the rain is getting more and more intense, it's getting heavier, and then there's the thunder and the lightning and all that. That is historic right there in itself. But even if you take the piece as a whole, regardless of whether you like the song choices or not, it's like that was a historic moment from beginning to end. And this is something I know originally this was supposed to be the climax of Prince's autobiography originally. So whatever stories that needed to be told about that particular day and what he was thinking and what he wanted to convey, and having that be sort of the definitive end for the biography, man, I mean, that's a what if to itself. That's, which we can kind of go into like the quantum realm and, see an alternate universe to read what he was thinking, what he was feeling, and what he would have wanted to convey, sharing those thoughts via that biography. But what I'm hoping, though, if ever I don't know what the deal is with the Netflix documentary. Is it still on the table? Is it still in development? Have they found a director? But regardless, if it's Netflix or whoever does, I mean, I would rather see it on Netflix because you would get like more of a multi-part thing, kind of similar to maybe the Beatles anthology. When that was on network television, it covered 3 nights. But if you buy the DVD set of that, that's like 8 discs. There's, I think, 2 to a case. And, each covers a specific period. And for somebody like Prince, you need sort of like an 8 to 9, volume set of DVDs to tell the story, in full, and to kind of give a lot of, what each theme would consist, right, a good amount of time for it to get the points across. You couldn't really narrow that down in a 2-hour documentary. An entire lifetime, you couldn't narrow it down. You need an 8-9 part series or something for that. So I'm hoping, if it is Netflix, or heck, maybe if it goes straight to DVD or straight to Blu-ray, or if maybe Hulu picks it up or something, that moment right there in itself, I can visualize, the trailer, for that, just utilizing that particular piece, where they're saying things like, oh, well, he said at that moment, can it rain even harder, or, it, like I said, that nobody could have scripted that, you couldn't have planned that. It's just, that's basically symmetry, or, I guess maybe as Carl Jung would put it, synchronicity, or maybe more symmetry. I don't know. Smarter people, leave me a comment. Let me know the right choice of words for that. But I can definitely see that being a key part of just about any documentary that covers it in full. Or, you could do maybe a short documentary just on that Super Bowl performance alone. I don't know where you would include it, but it's a very historical moment. Like I said, I think the thing that still gets to me to this day is, like I said, just the fact of just, like I said, it just rained harder. It was just like, God pressed a button somewhere and said, more rain, and whoosh, and, and it's purple rain, folks. And they brought the rain, and that was great. So definitely, like I said, unpopular comparisons aside, it is probably, I would say, like I said, nitpicking over performance, that's a different thing. But to me, I think, you have to include, Michael Jackson's was the first, because I don't know, a lot of you probably aren't old enough to remember the halftime show was basically little or nothing when I was a kid. I know by like the 70s, there was this thing, and I almost wanted to just look it up and give you guys some historical context, but I'm sorry, I just can't. You just do it on your own. But there was this thing called Up With People, and God, if you just go back and just YouTube, they were like, it was like this group. It's kind of it was kind of like the Coca-Cola commercials of old, the whole "I like to teach the world to sing," but just cornier. It's just like the Coca-Cola "I like to teach," that was, that was a cool thing back in the day. That made you want to drink Coca-Cola. You sang the song, that was cool. And it was it was the world, it was very diverse, and holding hands and singing, and it's the early 70s. It was a good marketing campaign. But the Up With People was sort of like the corny version of it. And it was the halftime show for a long time, for a great number of years. This was the halftime show. But it didn't improve over time. It just got cornier and cornier and cornier, and people just absolutely grew to despise it. In fact, it got so bad that there were even death threats, sadly. That's how bad this thing was. And I think maybe whoever got network rights to the Super Bowl at one point, or maybe the NFL decided, okay, well, the game itself still gets these great big ratings, but then people just started, and that was the thing, people just automatically would just not watch the halftime show because of it. It was just so cheesy and it was so corny, that it just wasn't working, and the ratings were dipping. And so they decided that, well, if we did a halftime show, who could we get that would keep the people there, because it's a thing. You don't want people turning off the TV sets for 15 minutes or changing the channel for 15 minutes and then trying to come back, because that's affecting your overall ratings. You want people to watch your show from beginning to end. But yeah, it had nothing to do with football, really. It was just really bad. But I guess somebody came with a clever idea. Hey, why don't we get Michael Jackson to do the halftime show? And it worked. It worked, so just on the strength of that. So besides that being a historical moment, I would say the next historically significant moment that would eclipse even Michael Jackson's performance, in that case, would be Prince's halftime Super Bowl performance, because it was just more cosmic, where Michael's was more magic. If you read The Beautiful Ones, what I'm talking about, folks. But yeah, so that's basically it. Like I said, I remember taping it, the halftime show. I think I still got it on VHS sitting around somewhere. But yeah, that is one. Definitely was February 1st, 2007, and historical moment. And like I said, they need to put that on a documentary. And if that documentary is released as a Blu-ray, if it's an 8-part or a 7-part set, then there should be a bonus disc, and that performance should be on the bonus disc in its entirety. Foo Fighters song and all. So that's my thoughts and my memories on the 2007 Super Bowl halftime show. Like I said, a lot of people have been talking about it. Is it still uppermost in your mind? Is it still your absolute favorite halftime performance? Did you like the song selection? What song do you think should have gone in that set list for that night? Or do you think it was perfect as it was? Leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And now we're going to move on to our Bite the Boots segment. And Bite the Boots is a segment that highlights a circulating bootleg or vault recording or video for consideration for an official release by the estate. And today's Bite the Boot selection is Prince Live at Montreux 2009. And this was a performance, took place July 18th of 2009. And there was a second show. There was the second show later that day. So, originally, this was supposed to have been released on DVD. It was professionally filmed, but I don't know the reason why it was not released. I know a lot of it around 2009. There was that Lotus Flower website that Prince had. It didn't last long at all. It wasn't as great as the MPG Music Club. The asking price to join, I know that was a little steep for me, so it was like, no thanks. But I think there was a lot of information regarding or teasing that as a release at one point. But as far as we know, it still remains in the vault, probably Prince's vault, more than likely. But it has been sort of circulating amongst collectors in both CD form as well as DVD form. So apparently, again, there's been a lot of rumblings about too much focus being placed on classic material. And what I mean by classic material, of course, his albums of the 80s, that were huge hits, or there was sort of like that level of consistency. We kind of talk about Stevie Wonder in that same breath. It's like he had huge hits in the 60s, of course. But that 70s output, starting with Music from My Mind, and then maybe, depending on your point of view, to Hotter Than July. But especially Music of My Mind and Talking Book, Intervisions, Fulfilling His First Finale, Songs in the Key of Life, that was Stevie's classic period. He was every album was number one. Every album was like virtually Grammy of the year. So much so that year between Fulfilling This First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life, because it took about 2 years to do Songs in the Key of Life. When Paul Simon won his Grammy for Album of the Year, he literally thanked Stevie for not putting out a record that year. And, so Prince's classic 80s period is sort of that equivalent, to where, that's where he basically made his bones, was through that particular period. And, that's not to say that he didn't have great output, because, like I said, go check out my special on YouTube, my Emancipation special, where, to me, that particular album should be mentioned in the same breath as Songs in the Key of Life and George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. And like I said, there's other great albums, other great songs that did come much later. But this Live at Montreux is definitely one of those great moments, one of those kind of, if you do a ranking of maybe his best live, well, not live performances, but his best concerts or his best tours, this is one that, should make the argument of being amongst his best. Put maybe the Sign of the Times Lovesexy tour, then the Purple Rain tour, but include this Montreux Jazz Festival show as part of it, because this was a lot of critics enjoyed it and a lot of the fans enjoyed it. Again, this is an item that's in circulation amongst the collectors, and probably one of the more popular later pieces of work that's sought after. So a little background on the Montreux Jazz Festival. It was formerly called the Festival des Jazz Montreux, and it is a music festival that's held in Switzerland every year in July. It's probably it says it's the second largest annual jazz festival in the world after the Montreal International Jazz Festival. But Montreux was started in 1967 by Claude Nobs, Gio Vermade, hope I'm pronouncing these names correctly, and René Langel. And this was also backed by Ahmet Ertegun of Atlantic Records. There's a documentary on him. You should check that out too. I can't think of the name of it at the moment, but if you kind of Google it, hopefully maybe YouTube has it up or something, or I think maybe you can still purchase it somewhere. But the blues, as far as blues and maybe some jazz, getting to mainstream America, and especially particularly during the rock and roll era, Atlantic Records is definitely an American institution. Probably, right up there with Motown being an American institution. But yeah, definitely check it out. So this Ahmet Ertegun was also instrumental in starting this jazz festival. And originally, it, hence the name, it used to focus mainly on jazz artists. But kind of later years, kind of getting into the 80s, 90s, 2000s, they decided to kind of widen the field. So you get groups or artists from all genres. Like I said, blues with Buddy Guy, the funk with George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. You've had Eric Clapton. Stevie Ray Vaughan has performed there. Ringo Starr with the All-Star Band. So what I like about this set, kind of similar to when I discussed last week about the Lay New Morning live set, that this isn't your typical greatest hits concert. It's not it's not that simple. Just the song choices, a lot of different songs. Probably as I'm going through the set list, you've got, of course, Beautiful Ones, Purple Rain, of course, Little Red Corvette. In fact, this version of Little Red Corvette, I urge you to kind of if you can, seek it out. But definitely one of the main reasons for me why I think this should get an actual mainstream release by the estate. Because, thing with Prince is that the goal was always to make the performance better than the record. And I think as we were getting into sort of the later years, he was starting to play with arrangements of different songs, like rearranging different songs, to where they were, instead of being, of course, obviously still better than the record, but also very different from the record, a very left field of what we've been conditioned by listening to the original records a lot. But also, too, there's, of course, this is a jazz festival. So, yeah, there's, of course, his jazzier type songs, Somewhere Here on Earth, which is probably the only song that I like on Planet Earth on that album. She Spoke to Me, Love Like Jazz. Let's see, All the Critics Love You in New York. No, okay, let's see. Actually, okay, I'm actually with that particular one. I'm thinking about the version of All the Critics Love You in New York, the live at the Bataclan, that performance. But let's see. Oh, In a Large Room with No Light, another standout performance from this set. The opening track, When I Lay My Hands on You, that song, listening to it live, actually made me go back and listen to the studio version, because on the Chocolate Invasion, I know when I first downloaded that set from the MPG Music Club, I don't know. I can't remember what my thoughts on that was. I didn't think it was a bad track, but there were other tracks on that I went to, and sometimes I used to skip over it. But now, when I first heard the live version, back when this started surfacing on YouTube way back when, then it gave me a deeper appreciation of this song. So now I enjoy listening to the studio version of this now. But again, this is another example of why I think this particular set should be released by the estate. Like I said, again, this is probably something that should be released on both DVD and CD and vinyl. Like I said, there's a lot of, like I said, it's not just a greatest hits thing. Musicology was probably the best sort of greatest hits tour that he's done to me. Maybe next to, I like the Nude tour a lot, but to me, I thought Musicology was better, as far as like just doing just the hits on that. But as far as among his best performances where it's not a greatest hits tour, like this one, to me, this is one of the better sort of non-hits tours. But it still has a lot of the energy and a lot of the excitement that you would get from sort of someone doing their, greatest hits on tour. And again, like I said, just do a comprehensive set. This could be a box set where you can include maybe both DVD and CD, or you can sell them separately. Again, like I said, I'm a nut for liner notes. So, give me a nice book. This one kind of would, I think, deserves a book. Not just kind of like just some liner notes with a few paragraphs or a few pages or whatever. This one kind of, with pictures from the tour or still shots from the DVD, that type of thing. But like I said, with Prince, I think we're at a stage now where kind of like a lot of the Jimi Hendrix stuff, some of the Miles Davis reissues and box sets. I think, Prince is at a point now to where we definitely need as much historical context as possible. And I think more so with him just because of the mystique and sort of that, now we can kind of peek behind the curtain, so to speak, but put things in a historical context to where now we can appreciate the artistry. There was a piece, or not a piece, but I've seen on social media lately where Google, I guess through an ad, they had a picture of Prince Purple Rain era and saying that he is the most searched guitar solo. I can't remember. Let's see. I think, was it last episode? But I've discussed, and even on social media, I've also commented on, in discussions with other people on different topics, where I feel like a lot of times the mystique and the imagery sort of got in the way of not only us as fans sometimes, because we know we deep dive, we're into the deep cuts, we're into the B-sides, so we get it. But then there's sometimes too, because of the output, or because of a certain concept or certain image of a certain album or something, that we kind of miss the boat because we're put off by the image, where, maybe we're attached to the 80s image or something, or, we were cool with that one album in the 90s, but then there's this other one that's like, what's this about? But I think a lot of that got in the way of us really appreciating it. And unfortunately, we're at a point where we're going back and kind of realizing that, man, there's some great stuff on this record too, to where, and I think even with the mainstream, where it's just people just only know Purple Rain. So, I think something like this, and like I said, putting good liner notes and everything now would kind of put it in a perspective. So whether you're somebody new that's like, okay, well, I know Purple Rain, but what's this about? Well, now you know what this is about, in addition to the music. The music you'll get. That would, in a lot of times, be a no-brainer. But again, music is subjective. So if one particular piece doesn't get you, definitely one will. But at least, even if you don't get it, you get why this was important or why this particular era was significant. So that's what I say. I hope, we get like a good set of liner notes with this. Or actually, I just like to see it released, period. So yeah, so some of this, like I said, it's circulating on YouTube now. Like I said, the whole purpose of Bite the Boots is kind of like, well, hopefully this stuff the estate takes notice of and releases it themselves. And in that way, we have good quality product at affordable prices, that we all can enjoy. So, so I hope this comes out someday. Like I said, but there is footage on YouTube. By all means, check it out. You'll definitely have a good time with it. Like I said, I'll probably at some point go back in and check it out again. Like I said, When I Lay My Hands on You, that particular one, made me go back and want to listen to the studio version again. Like I said, the Little Red Corvette performances, outstanding. In a large room with no light, that's outstanding. Let's see what else is on there. There's, of course, the second show, Insatiable and Scandalous, the beautiful ones. Yep, so lots of great songs from these performances here. So by all means, check it out. And like I said, anybody that does have the ear of the estate that's out there that's listening, hey, let them know. This is something that's definitely in demand, and maybe they should consider putting out one day. But what do you think? Is this one of your favorite live performances from Prince? Do you think that this should get a DVD or CD release? Let me know in the comments below and let me know your thoughts. And that is going to end episode 24 of Amari Purple Talk. Also, too, like I said, still in development, but hopefully we'll have something out definitely before the month ends. And that is going to be the Amari Funk Soloist Hour. And that podcast is going to cover the funk, the whole funk, and nothing but the funk. So it's going to concentrate on just about everybody, whether it's Parliament Funkadelic, Cameo, Lakeside, James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, you name it, we're going to talk about it because it's just funky. So like I said, before the end of the month, we're going to drop the first episode on that podcast. And also, too, like I said, check out the Amari merchandise. There's links in the show notes. Otherwise, you can visit amaricommunications.com and go to the merchandise page. Click the link that says Shop Here. That'll take you to the Cafe Press site where you can place your order. And also give me some feedback on that, especially the Amari Purple Talk t-shirts, mugs, get yourself one, get one for a friend. There's also other designs that I have on there as well, especially if you are all funketeers out there. There's my We Funk t-shirt, which is to the last beat, to the last bass, to the last band, We Funk. So definitely, pick one up. All you music lovers, or if you have friends or family members that are lovers of the funk, that is definitely a t-shirt you need to put on their backs, folks. So by all means, check that out. And also, too, keep downloading, keep listening. YouTube folks, keep liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification button. And we're going to sign off this week, and we will see you next week. And as always, keep it purple and on the one.